Hey everybody, Bill Caskey Live, 8:30. I'm really glad to be here today with you. We are in the middle of Challenge Week. You probably heard me talking about that last week. The $1 Million Seller Challenge going on right now, Monday through Friday. We're smack dab in the middle of it. Today on the challenge, we're going to be talking about lead generation. How do you create opportunities in the modern digital age? And so that's our focus for today. In this episode, I want to talk a little bit about, and by the way, if you're interested in joining the next challenge, it's too late for this one, but we start them every month. I think the next one's May 6th or something like that. You can go to milliondollarsellerchallenge.com. I believe we're going to be changing the dates on that here. If not today, if you look there today and the dates are still April, whatever, 8th to 12th, wait a day or so and we'll get those new dates up for May. But love to have you in. We got a great group of people, and I love these challenges because it gives me a chance to really work with people and get some movement, get some things done. Today we're going to talk about the idea of strategy, and this comes from the work that we are doing in the challenge and the work that I do with all of my clients, and that is, how do you grow your income? How do you really grow your income? And this could apply to whether you were talking about income or revenue, whatever. How do you grow your results? And there's really 5 areas. Number one is you got to get your mind right, your ethos right, your mission right, your values right, because that underpins everything. Number 2, you got to get your strategy right. We're going to talk about that today. Number 3, got to get your lead gen right. If you don't have enough, lead gen is it's kind of the nourishment of the business. If you don't have enough leads coming in and you don't know how to generate leads and don't know how many a month you need, it becomes really hard to grow. Lead conversion, how you take those leads, convert them into sales, client maximization. We're not going to get into that. We don't have time, and that's an advanced thing that I hold back for just my clients. So anyway, with that, we are going to talk about strategy today, though. And, I don't talk about this much, but I think achievement in sales is a very spiritual concept. Personal achievement is spiritual in nature. And unfortunately, we in the West have made it a very mechanical thing, like how many calls you need to make and how many pieces of business do you need to land and what's your closing percentage. And it's all very mechanical. And I'm not opposed to of having achievement be having a part of mechanics, because you do have to kind of get yourself out of bed in the morning. You gotta rise, you got to go work out, you got to eat right, brush your teeth, you got to go to the marketplace and do your thing. But it's mostly spiritual. Achievement is spiritual. And this is one thing that I have such a problem with most sales training and coaching. It's all mechanics and behavior. And there was even what was it called? The cookbook. The cookbook is, well, how many deals you need to get? How many leads you need to get? Well, how many calls you need to make? And it was all just very mechanical. And there was no spirituality in it at all. So I want to talk about why I think strategy especially is spiritual. Number one, it requires courage. The root word of courage is cor. It's a Latin root word. It means heart. And courage means heart. It means being wholehearted. And strategy requires courage, because you have to say, where am I today? Where do I want to be a year or 2 or 5 down the road? So it requires the courage to put that out into the world, even if it's just to yourself. That requires a lot of courage. Most people don't have that courage. You may not have that courage. When I ask people in the challenge, I say, what do you want your business life or your income life to look like in a year, 2 years? It's hard. It's hard for some people. You might say, oh, it's just a number. Yeah, it's just a number. But if it's just a number, it doesn't mean much to you. So we've got to create that number. Let's say you want to earn $1 million a year, just for I think that's a nice goal for all of us. But anyway, and you're at $200,000 right now. It's going to require courage to figure out, okay, am I really committed to that? Or is that just something I threw out there because Bill Caskey said I should throw it out there? So courage is the idea of having the heart, having the ability to take the action, to move the needle, to take action. Number 2, it requires creativity and imagination. It's hard to put a goal out there and set a vision without some kind of imagination, because you're imagining the future. You're saying, what do I want my business life to look like? Well, I'd like to spend maybe a week, a month in Florida, or on vacation, or in a peaceful setting. Doesn't have to be vacation, and maybe another week, a month recharging, and then maybe 2 weeks a month working and putting in the hours. Maybe that's your ideal scenario. Is that possible? Oh, absolutely, it's possible. There's people doing it. You may not think it's possible. I may think, oh boy, 2 weeks a month. I have trouble getting stuff done working 4 weeks a month, 30 days a month. How am I going to? Oh, we could do it. We could do it. But the problem is, if we don't have that imagination, which I think is a spiritual essence, the creativity, God created us in his own image. So in his own image, he is a creator. He is the creator, if you follow biblical worldviews at all. If you don't, that's fine. But we have this seed of creativity and ability within us that we rarely tap into. So number one is courage or heart. Number two is creativity. And number three is growth. We are creatures of growth. We grow up. Sometimes we grow out, but we are always growing. We are always, or should always be growing spiritually and reading spiritual texts. And I'm not talking biblical. I'm not talking a religion necessarily. I'm talking about how are you growing yourself so that when you get to the marketplace, here's what I don't understand about most sales training. When you get to the marketplace, all that matters is who you are and how you carry yourself. That's all that matters. You might say, well, it matters whether I get the deal or not. Well, if you don't carry yourself right, you don't conduct yourself properly, you don't have the right mindset, the right strategy, the right lead, you don't have an abundant mentality, you don't have high intent, you're not there for the customer, you're there for you. If you're there for you all the time, do you not think people see that? You don't think people feel that? Of course they do. Sometimes we default to that almost inadvertently. I had a guy yesterday in the challenge say, you know what? I know that you've been talking about detachment for 20 years. But he said, sometimes I go through these phases where I get so attached to deals and I lose them. I lose them because I need them too bad. If you're losing deals that you should get, that you kind of logically say, I probably should have gotten that, it's probably because you were attached. And when you're attached, you can't do or say the things you need to do or say to bring the deal in. So this idea that achievement is all mechanical is just all BS. It's just all BS. It's 90. I think it's probably 80 to 90% spiritual. And I'm not going to go into tons more on that, but just so you know, that's where I think we are. So when we look at strategy here, we say, okay, we want to grow our business. We want to get to a new place in life. Let's say we want to go from $100,000 a year to $500,000 a year in 2 years. Okay, that's a pretty significant improvement. That's a 5x improvement. You have to have some kind of a strategy to get there. Just making calls is not going to be enough. And yet that's what I see people resort to a lot of times, just behavior, more action. Want to get to 500 grand? Just work 5 times harder. That's all. Just work 5 times harder. You'll get there. Don't worry. Just go. Okay, go out to the marketplace. You can't work 5 times harder. You have to work five times smarter. You have to get strategy. You have to understand the strategy. So what are the elements of strategy? There's 3. Number 1 is you've got to use the assets that you have been gifted by God, by your creator, or if you don't like that avenue, just assets that you've created over the years, that you've acquired, things that you are good at. I bet if I sat down with you for an hour, and we looked at your assets, the things that you are just really good at, things that you have at your disposal. It could be physical assets like a phone or a camera. It could be, psychological assets like your well-being, your personal well-being, your ability to establish rapport with people. We would come up with a lot of assets. And you know what we'd also find? 90% of those you're not using. You're not using to the extent you could. You're probably a C- to D+ on most of those assets. I've just done it so many times with people. I know that you are not using the assets that either God created, God gave you, or that you have acquired, or both. And when we don't use our assets, how are we going to get to a new place? If you want to go from 100 grand to 500 grand, it's real simple. Use your assets. It's real simple. Use your assets. Well, okay, Bill, how do I use my assets? Well, you got to first figure out what they are. So you've got to identify those. We did that in the challenge yesterday. We identified what are your assets and then decide which ones are going to bring me to the promised land. Which ones, if I use, are really going to help me get to a new place in my life? What's going to help me get to my goal? If you're not using your assets, If you're using 20% of your assets 20% of the way, how are you going to get to 5x or 10x income? I can get you from 100 grand to 500 grand real easily. But first, the first step is identify the assets. So that's number one. Number two element of strategy is you have to look at who that person is who is going to be earning the money you say you want to earn. So you're 100 grand now, want to get to 500 grand. And again, I know I'm just using these numbers and it's not all about money, but that's, in a way, that's why we're in sales and we're in business to create wealth. Who do I need to become in order to be that person who makes it easy to make 500 grand a year? The person who earns $500,000 a year versus the person that earns 100,000. I'll bet if you looked at the $100,000 a year person versus the $500,000 a year person, you would not see too much difference in work ethic. They wouldn't. I think the $500,000 person will not work harder, longer hours. They just won't than the other person will. You just won't see a huge difference. In fact, you might see just the opposite. You might see that person has employed other people, has deployed other assets, has hired people on Fiverr to do things that they know that they need to be doing high dollar per hour. And the problem is right now, you're trying to do it all. And you're not willing to invest in a lower dollar an hour delegation to get to a higher dollar an hour revenue. If you want to get from 100 grand to 500 grand, you might need help along the way. You can't do it all. You might need to spend 100 grand to get to 500 grand or 20 grand or 5 grand. You might need to spend money. And this is one thing people are very reluctant to do. I'm telling you, people are reluctant to invest in themselves. But if you want to get from 100 to 500, you might have to invest in yourself a little bit or in other people to help you do those things. So who are you becoming? The kind of person that invests in themselves, that looks at themselves. You are one big asset machine, not one big asset. You're a big asset machine. You have all these assets. I remember I was in a program with a guy named Bo Eason about 5, 6, 7 years ago. And Bo is a speaking coach. He's a presentation coach. And I went to one of his programs and signed up for his year long. We went out to California a few times and he rented this studio, this place, and we stood up on stage and we would have to talk to give our speech, give our presentation. He gave us time to write it. And so the idea was you give the first 3 minutes and then we'll all judge you. We'll all give you notes, kind of like in Hollywood. And he was an actor, did a lot of acting. So he had that kind of notes thing. So I got up there and I'm delivering my speech, very self-conscious, because I'm not used to being, it's literally a stage with, I don't know, it's probably 500 seats. Now there's only 25, 30 people in the front rows. But I delivered my speech and he stopped me about 3 minutes and he goes, whoa, Bill. Like, uh-oh, here we go. And I kind of smiled. And he was a really good coach. He was very direct though. He goes, how tall are you? I said, 6'5". He said, let me see your wingspan. So I put my wingspan. Typically your wingspan is about your height, 6'5", 75, 77 inches. And he said, how big's this stage? And I said, oh, it's probably 60 feet. He said, yeah, it's 80 feet. He says, why do you stand in one place with your arms down? Why do you shrink on the stage? And he got me. And the reason I was shrinking on the stage is because I was shrinking in a lot of places in my life. I wasn't expressing myself. I wasn't being big. And he says, I want you to be large on stage. He said, if you're 5'2" and chubby and have short legs, you can't do that. But you're 6'5", 200 and whatever pounds, you can be bigger than you are. And he said something that I'll never forget. He said, your body is an asset. All of our bodies are an asset for us, but we don't use them that way. And I'm not suggesting you have to be 6'5" to consider your body's an asset. Your mind is an asset. Your heart is an asset. So who are you becoming? Who do you need to become to make that income that you say you want to make easier to make? Might have to be fearless, might have to be courageous, might have to become more judicious about where you spend your time. You can't spend your time with $5 with small thinkers. Maybe the people around you, you need to swap out some of the people around you. If you're not in a group where people are, growing and spiritually growing and ambition and want to help each other. If you're a group of drinkers and smokers and weed people, that's probably not going to help you. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that occasionally, but if that's a steady diet, I think it's hard. So who do you want to become? You have to decide that. Third thing is, what are the skills you need to acquire? I'm not talking about the present skills. Those I consider assets, skills that you're already good at. Maybe you're really good at asking questions. Maybe you're really good at finding problems. Maybe you're really good at equating the problem one of your prospects has with the dollars of it. You're denominating the pain, as we say. But what are some new skills? Those are old. Those are good. Keep those. Keep working on those. By the way, sometimes they go a little sour. You got to keep up. But what are some new skills? Like one of the skills that I know I need to get better at, and I hopefully have, maybe you would disagree, is the ability to look into a camera and feel like you're on the other side of the camera. And I know you're out there. That's a Moody Blues song. I know you're out there. It didn't sound anything like that, though. I know you're out there, but I have to, when I'm speaking to you, I have to imagine, I have to believe that you're right on the other side of that camera. And so I'm looking at the camera. That has come hard for me. It's difficult because when I look at that black hole and maybe the green light on the camera, I don't see people. All I see is a green light and a black hole. So that's a skill that I need to get better at. What about you? What skill do you need to get better at in order to get to that $500,000 or whatever the number is? Because there are skills. Your income is on the other side of skills. Your income is on the other side of skills that you need. But if you don't ever believe that you need more skills, which I'd say 75% of the population don't want anything to do with skill improvement. They don't want anything to do with it. The high achievers always do. I've got these people in my $1 Million Challenge. These are not all billion-dollar producers. These are all people who have said to themselves, I need to get better. I need to reinvent. I need to reinvigorate. I need to get better at certain things. I need to get better at thinking. I need to get better at creation. I need to get better at video. I need to get better at audio. So high achievers have a predisposition to improvement. Low achievers don't. If you haven't spent $1 on yourself in the last year, I will say you're a low achiever. You're operating at a fraction of what you could, because we need to invest in ourselves. I'm not talking about me, invest in me. You can invest in my program if you want. If you don't want to, I'm good. I'm good either way. That doesn't change my life at all. But you need to find a way to invest in yourself. It could even be a book or a course online or a coaching. It could be anything. But if you're not growing, you're stagnating. And I believe me, I see a lot of people. I come across a lot of people in my business and in my day-to-day. And some of these people are clients. Some of these people are corporate clients. They haven't paid. Most of my clients who have paid out of their own pocket are all in. They're not who I'm talking about. Because if you're cutting a check to somebody, me or somebody else, you are in. You are all in. But if you're a corporation and you're one of 20 people in a training program and you're not paying anything for it, you're just going because somebody said show up at 3:00 and listen to Caskey, you may or may not be interested. I've thrown people out who are not interested. I don't want you there if you're not interested. If people are a part of a group and it becomes apparent after 3 months they're not paying any attention, I want them out. Get them out of there. I would rather have 5 people who are all in than 25 people, 20 of which don't care. But most people don't care. That's fine. I want to work with the people who do care. And so that's a skill that I've had to learn, is how to remove myself from those people who don't want growth and focus on the people who do. Because when I started in this business, I wanted to help everybody. Guess what? You can't do it. You can't do it either. You can't help everybody. You've got to find the people who you can help and help them. I'm not talking about coaching. I'm talking about whatever business you're in, and recognize the fact that 70% of the people you come across don't want your help. They just don't. So your strategy to get from where you are to where you want to be, here's the income ascension model. Your strategy has to be I think it has to be spiritual. It has to be about the assets, and it takes courage to look deep within yourself to find the assets. It really does. Uh, it's dangerous. It's a little dangerous for you to stop what you're doing for a couple of hours someday and embrace your assets and look rigorously, honestly, what you're good at and how to leverage those things. Because you might find that you're operating on about 5% of your assets, not even 20, 30, maybe 5%. And you look, I had a guy yesterday in the challenge say, I'm overcome with anger and inspiration at the same time. Because he said, I've realized after you made me make that list, but after we did the exercise where you make the list of your assets, he said, I realized how many I have and how few I use. And it's a dangerous place. But I think we all have to go out of our comfort zone a little bit and get into danger place. Okay, so as I said, this $1 Million Seller Challenge, I'm just giving you some clips and highlights from these things. If you're interested in joining the next one, there is a fee to it. It's like $47 or $49, something like that. But it's a week's worth of training, a 1 hour a day. You can upgrade to the VIP. I think it's an extra $100. But take a look at that, and I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about lead generation a little bit. We're going to keep moving up. Talked about personal strategy today. Personal strategy, it is spiritual. It requires courage. It requires growth. It requires creation. There's nothing quite as much as spiritual as that to me. See ya.